Hi, everybody. I'm David Allan. I'm the chair of the marketing department at St. Joseph's University in Philadelphia, where I teach marketing communications and music marketing to undergraduates and marketing concepts to graduate students. Today, I'm presenting a paper on integrating audio branding into the marketing curriculum, a model for that. So, not surprising to any of us, music in life is everywhere, and in the curriculum, and in curriculum also everywhere. Management classes, sociology classes, even marketing classes have music. Typically, it's more of background, atmospheric kind of situation, before class, after class, sometimes during class and group projects and that kind of stuff. Occasionally used, for example, I use it in advertising, in music and advertising, which is what I research. Lots of popular music out there, background music and that kind of stuff. So integrating it into the curriculum in that capacity, not new. Audio branding, different story. So audio branding and classes are popping up here and there. And books have been written on it, some very good ones that you're probably all aware of. But as far as the integration of audio branding into the marketing curriculum, primarily a principles of marketing class or a consumer behavior class, not so widespread. Depends on the teacher, obviously. It's been a while since Kotler talked about music and atmospherics, but when he did, he talked about it having emotional cues in the environment. And this is also true in audio branding, of course. A great example of current audio branding from a brand is MasterCard. 2019 came up with a strategy, a sonic branding strategy. Had the pleasure of talking to Raja, who's the chief marketing officer of MasterCard, for a book, Selfless Plug, coming out here. I have a book coming out this year on Business Experts Press called Supersonic Logos, The Power of Audio Branding. So I hope you look out for that. But anyway, I talked to him for the book to talk about MasterCard's strategy and philosophy and that kind of stuff. And they're fully integrated. It's not just about the logo. If you're in audio branding, it's not just about the audio logo. That seems to be, just like in a print logo is not just the brand. It's a representation of the brand. But across all touch points in their strategy, and even releasing some music as part of the strategy, not to become a label, a record label, but just to further the audio branding strategy. It's quite impressive, and I urge you to Google it. Audio is hot. Again, I laugh when I hear people say that. I was in radio for 20 years. I always thought audio was hot, but maybe it's because it's getting so much more attention now. It was at some point in radio days, audio and video. Audio took a kind of a backseat to video. The old radio versus TV advertising argument. I got to see it to believe it. But certainly, I never believed that, and I don't think anyone watching this believed that. But audio getting newfound love and attention, primarily, I think, with smart speakers, and then the advent of probably podcasting. But the numbers grow every day. 24% of U.S. adults 18 plus own a smart speaker. 2 to 3 in a house, using many times during the day, streaming audio, podcasting, music, even radio is a lot of times telling you to ask Alexa to play the radio station through the smart speakers, because studies show there are less and less radios in households now. So not surprising, the smart speakers, all ships are rising when it comes to that. So what am I talking about here? I'm talking about the formal integration and inclusion of audio branding into classes. I think it works best with undergraduates and in the principles of marketing and consumer behavior courses, because both spend a certain amount of time talking about branding, and audio branding certainly would be a great example of how a brand brands, right? It could begin with the usual discussion of branding, brand name, brand logo, and then it could grow into, here's another type of branding, the audio branding. This demographic, as we know, finds music a very important part of their life, of their everyday life. And not that we as adults don't, but I think that to the undergraduate student, it's just much more pronounced, at least in their mind. And so giving something like this to them when they already are welcome to music and audio, I think is a good thing. I've always felt that in order to educate students, you needed to entertain them at some point, and music and audio certainly entertaining. And a clarification here, audio could be any audio that includes music, but not necessarily music. Could be, usually. So how it would work. Like anything else, I think that a lot of us bring in a lot of outside sources and maybe aren't so fixated on the textbook telling us what we should or should not be teaching or focusing on. But a lot are. So I'm thinking that in the chapter on branding, audio branding needs to be there. And it maybe in some books, most of the books that I've looked at do not have it. The principles books and the consumer behavior books. So, first you give a definition. I have one, audio elements within the framework of brand communications. There's a lot of great definitions out there for what audio branding is. I think it also helps to give an example. And whereas I know, and if the folks that are in audio branding know, audio branding is so much bigger than just the audio logo. But just like a print logo really can facilitate the discussion of branding, I think the audio logo can facilitate the discussion of audio branding. I think that there are many great examples. Again, back to my book, AT&T, T-Mobile, McDonald's, lots of good ones, NBC Chimes. But I think that the most universally maybe liked and known is probably Intel, the Intel Inside. Maybe because it's branded itself so well. But so I'm pitching the idea that will be the example that will facilitate the discussion. In a textbook, I give an example of Michael Solomon's textbook. We use his principles of marketing, marketing real people, real choices in Philadelphia. Not surprising. And we use his consumer behavior book. And as an example, he, to facilitate his discussions, he has what's, snapshots in a figure. So I'm proposing that's how this could work. So it begins with, the story, the backstory of how it happened. With the Intel backstory, also had the pleasure of talking to Walter Rozen, who created the Intel logo. And it's a good story. Plus, he has updated the logo. There's plenty of YouTube videos which could facilitate sort of a toolkit for this kind of thing. In the case of Dr. Solomon, he has the marketing lab, whereas a professor could go find more stuff. And certainly there's lots of stuff for the Intel example. There, videos and YouTube videos and interviews with Walter. Intel has done a lot of stuff with it. And so I think it's a great starting point for audio branding, is using this audio logo and how they've done it. And as a lot of you know, it's also a great example of cooperative advertising. Way back when, the Intel folks smartly decided that the Intel processor was not going to be marketed rationally or informationally, meaning they weren't going to do long form advertising where it talked about how it worked, why it worked, where it was in the computer, how big was it, what did it cost, how was it manufactured. They, I think, rightly decided that, and maybe through research, hopefully through research, that consumers were going to glass over in advertising. A similar example is when the iPods came out. I think the original iPod commercial was a how-to, crazy boring and crazy unsuccessful. And then the Apple folks came up with the silhouettes where you had white headphones and white iPods and colors and that kind of stuff, where it looked really cool and it had a lot of music, but it didn't tell you what it cost, where to buy it, or anything, or even how to use it, other than the fact that it was fun. So anyway, I think Intel works really, really well with this for introducing audio branding and audio logos into the curriculum. Back to Intel making this decision, what they did was further in cooperative advertising was they went to the computer manufacturers and said to them, look, if you put our chip in your computer, we'll pay for a percentage of your advertising, which was brilliant, I think, in some capacity. Then instead of doing something rational, informative, all they did was at the end was play the audio logo for Intel inside and showed the print logo. And then people started listening for that and looking for that when they were buying their computers and their laptops. So it's always nice when you can incorporate many things across chapters. This would also facilitate the chapter on cooperative advertising and how that might work. And certainly has worked for Intel. And that's my discussion for today. Thanks for listening.